Have you ever played in a campaign in which all your actions seem to lead to a predetermined outcome? Have you ever had a lackluster campaign ending that felt like it was pulled out of thin air and didn't reference any of your group's actions throughout the entire adventure? As if your actual impact on the story had been just what the DM had planned all along. Maybe you know what I mean. Maybe you have been the Dungeon Master in a scenario like this, unsure how to incorporate the player's creative thinking into a pre-written module or your homebrew world full of stories which you want to conclude in a way that you find pleasing. I think most players know the trope of the DM who should have written a book, or the DM who railroads more than his country's public transport infrastructure, and these stereotypes do exist. I've met them, and I myself have done my fair share of railroading, especially starting out as a new Dungeon Master. And now, the more I lean towards sandbox campaigns and having the characters tell a story in the world instead of a pre-written adventure, I do it differently, I hope. If you are a Dungeon Master and want to change it up as well, or a player or group who should show this video to their DM, join me for this short dive into railroading and outcomes in D&D with the goal of making the game more fun for everyone. Trust your players. Railroading usually comes from a position of control, which originates from insecurity. Thoughts like, what do I do if the players diverge from the path, or what if my improvised content isn't good enough, start to creep in on some DMs. And I've found myself thinking, how can I stay true to the module if the players aren't interested or intrigued? And can I trust my players to tell a cohesive story like I had planned? But for the player's fun and your peace of mind, you may have to ditch, house rule, and homebrew some parts of a pre-written module, or rewrite some things in your homebrew world. Many modules require the DM to follow each chapter, event, and encounter, but they don't string them together well and then cease to work when you don't follow this badly strung together story. This becomes painfully apparent if you have ever played or DM'd Ghosts of Saltmarsh, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, or certain parts of Horde of the Dragon Queen. If the characters have no reason to go somewhere, they probably won't. My players will gladly roleplay a 10-day in a town with their goblin companions and their pet wolf, while someone desperately needs their help in some dungeon. But how would they know? And why would they care? The adventure expects them to go, but often doesn't explain why or expects them to stumble across it. Characters often have no reason to follow the adventure module, so step 1 to end railroading is giving characters motivation and trusting your players to strive for a cohesive story in which they do what their characters would do. I know the whole "it's what my character would do" carries a negative connotation for many D&D players, but if you trust your players to do the right thing, that is, progressing the story in a logical way, this is completely fine. No player or DM should have to arbitrarily do something to progress the story. Give them friendly NPCs, factions, quest boards, letters begging them for help. Make them feel wanted and make them a part of the world. I have a video on that, go watch it. Because most characters won't risk their lives for some sneering imperialist and a couple of gold, or a letter from some guy named Dave who lives 100 miles away. This is exactly where backstories tie in. Dave might be an old friend, family member, or benefactor of one or more characters, and that is already reason enough to go help him. You should also know how players' characters can be appealed to, because "please help me, I'm just a poor villager" probably won't work as well with an evil-aligned party as with a good-aligned one. Give control back to the players. The DM is both facilitator and player, and gets to have fun like any other player. And although the DM controls the world rather directly, so do the other players through the actions of their characters. Every D&D player exerts a certain amount of control upon the world simultaneously, thus creating a collaborative storytelling experience. If one person, in this railroading case the DM, is calling all the shots and is attached to the outcome of his own story, then it's not a collaborative experience. In that case, you, the players, are just plot devices, mere tools telling the story of the Dungeon Master's unwritten book, and at that point, we all know who the true BBEG is. But if you, as the DM, let your players come up with factions and characters for their backstories, and let them decide how to handle both social and combat encounters in which there are multiple outcomes, you basically can't railroad anymore. Don't give them the illusion of choice, give them actual choices to make, with benefits and negative effects to some. Picture something like this. Sure, you can skip this encounter by teleporting away from the devils, but be aware what that means. You would leave the villagers barricaded in the town hall behind. Now we have options, and a moral dilemma. Also, fellow Dungeon Masters, please make the other options viable. If a combat encounter doesn't occur because the characters talk their way out, give them the XP that they would have gotten had they fought. Although I avoid the XP problem altogether by using milestone leveling, which I find to be superior in almost every regard, but that would be another video. I suggest creating some encounters that are more difficult to solve with violence, thereby promoting the other two pillars of the game, which are often forgotten, in order to get the best outcome and benefits. Promote creative solutions. As a DM, this requires some thinking on the spot and brings us back to the why of railroading, because an insecure or inexperienced DM may be put off by players going off the beaten path of options presented in an adventure. But whatever you do, don't punish them for it. Just last session, my players had a possible deadly encounter with a large swarm of sturges at level 2. The bard cast sleep, rolled high, and the little buggers fell out of the sky. I think it was the most effective use of the sleep spell I have ever witnessed. A couple sessions prior to that, a level 7 cleric hid underneath a dragon sword to escape an adult dragon and then cast meld into stone, sinking into the stone underneath the treasure, leaving the angry dragon absolutely dumbfounded. Dungeon Masters should always promote player creativity. In a world only limited by your imagination, you should be at your most creative, and thinking out of the box should be rewarded. Use a little bit of rule of cool. Let a natural 20 get wacky. Maybe let it absolutely derail the session. The most random and absolutely insane stuff has led to the best, most memorable moments in my games. Don't be attached to outcomes. I just had a situation in my Horde of the Dragon Queen campaign where a player with a natural 20 on an inflict wound spell one-shot a boss that was supposed to survive until the next campaign. And I let it happen. No tricks, no health buffing, no nuh-uh, she revives. He won, he rolled high, he deserved it. Sure, I had to replace the main villain with a lower ranking one for the rest of the campaign, but that's fine. That kind of stuff happens all the time in planned out stories, minions taking the place of their masters after their untimely death, and it shows the players that even a lucky victory won't stop the cult of the dragon in its tracks. It worked well as a plot device and gave my players a nice victory along the way. Situations like those shouldn't be fudged, in my opinion. I know DMs like their cool bosses, but in the end, they are meant to be defeated, and if that happens sooner than it should, so be it. A possible campaign ending is also one in which the players don't succeed. It can be literally anything. This game has no narrative limitations. Are they swooped up and thrown into the Warhammer universe? Do they leave for one last voyage? Do they all settle down as royals? The prospect of so many possibilities reminds me why I love this game. You can incorporate all of your players' deeds, both good and bad, all their living allies and villains into the ending of a campaign. You could narrate it like the Fallout end slides, giving the players the opportunity to roleplay their farewells and parting wishes to everyone they know. Show your players that they had an impact. They're not just the heroes of the story, they're also part of the team of authors that wrote the ending. Let them explain what their characters are up to after the adventure. Your players get to narrate the ending for their characters just as much as you do. Have fun, create something legendary, don't railroad. If you enjoyed this little video, consider liking, subscribing to the channel, and railroading your friends and players into watching it, as that pushes my content to a wider audience. And comment your experiences with railroading and how you resolved them down in the comment section. I'm Killian with the Sorcerers of the Beach on Mainly Posting, and I bid you farewell on my choo-choo train.